Welcome to Earthenkind Quests. My name is Mike, and this video is about animal swarms in your adventures in Dungeons & Dragons, and generally in fantasy games and creative work. An animal swarm can be okay as a single encounter, but how could you build more elements of suspense and intrigue with a larger adventure or story? Here I will share my approach in 4 simple steps for making the best of animal swarms in your games and adventures. I should clarify though that a swarm creature is a category of a monster that consists of numerous tiny creatures acting together as a group. You may be familiar with a swarm of rats or a swarm of insects. Typically, a swarm acts with a mob-like mentality, aggressively going after any perceived threat in its vicinity. A swarm can enter and move through the space of another creature. Likewise, another creature can enter and move through the space of a swarm. A swarm can convert an ordinary tiny creature into something more dangerous as a swarm. For inspiration with animal swarms, I like to refer to Alfred Hitchcock's famous 1963 movie The Birds, based on the novella of the same name, written by Daphne du Maurier and published in 1952. The story involves ordinary birds growing hostile, and eventually the birds attack. I sometimes go back to the story of the birds and to some of the key scenes in the movie version. I imagine what could happen with different kinds of animals. In my games, I follow a procedure in 4 steps. First, the characters need to observe that these animals live naturally in the local environment. Rats, birds, and various types of insects could feel natural in nearly any setting. You could adjust for the specific environment with sparrows, seabirds, beetles, wasps, or whatever will make sense in your setting. Fish or crabs would be restricted to underwater settings. Bats usually would be restricted to underground, dark areas or to nighttime hours. The initial description part is simple, involving the usual description of what the characters see around them, while including one animal or perhaps a group of animals as part of the description. The animal description helps to fill what the environment looks like and to give a localized identity to the place. A pigeon could be perched on a rooftop, rodents could scurry beneath a pier, chickens could wander clucking through a garden, a squirrel or an owl could be in a tree. With this kind of plain description, most characters would focus on the place generally and on any people who happen to be there. I advise to be prepared, though, for a druid, a ranger, or another nature-themed character who might want to be friendly with animals, or to speak with animals. If such an event happens early in the story, then I make the animal timid and nervous, commenting that the others of its kind have been acting strangely and more aggressively than usual. If such an event happens later in the story, then I make the animal impatient, short-tempered, and unwilling to communicate. Second, I provide an opportunity for the characters to notice more about the animals, building up clues about something being unusual or unsettling. After some time will pass, or after the characters will move to a different scene, then I will describe what this new scene looks like while making sure to include the same animal type as part of this new description. During this second description, or maybe later in a third or fourth instance, I will add something that could attract the attention of the characters. Maybe a pigeon is squabbling with a squirrel, or maybe a rodent is undeterred by a shopkeeper trying to chase it away. Perhaps a character with the highest passive perception can notice that a cat observes the group for an unusually long time. Perhaps a character with the highest nature proficiency can notice that an animal is acting unnaturally. This event may or may not prompt the characters to investigate or to engage, As long as I can share the description, then the characters can make their own choices. I like to repeat this part with a few different variations of how the animals behave. At a certain point, I will add one unusually large animal. In Dungeons & Dragons, the Monster Manual offers several examples in the Beast category. If ever I cannot find the specific animal that I want, then I use something else and describe its appearance in the way that I want. I might use the statistics of a blood hawk for an animal that I describe as an unusually large pigeon. I might use the statistics of a giant rat for an animal that I describe as a ferocious rabbit. In its first appearance, the unusually large animal will not attack the characters or do anything that would provoke a combat situation. Rather, the characters will notice this beast. The beast will prepare an action to dash away if anyone would come within 15 feet of it. Third, the characters will encounter a swarm of animals. Typically, this encounter will be hostile and it will involve combat. The encounter can start with another standard description of what the place looks like, but now the animals are described differently. The characters notice one animal watching or following, then another, and so on until they recognize a mob or swarm forming. I like to emphasize whatever sounds that these animals are producing, growing into a crescendo and leading into the swarm moving to attack. If the characters earlier had noticed one unusually large-sized animal, then it will appear here again. In most cases, I make this one creature stay at the margins and prepare to flee if ever it will be threatened. Depending on the challenge level for the characters, I might add more than one animal swarm. This encounter allows for the characters to learn the mechanics of what happens with a swarm of animals. Additionally, this encounter can prepare the characters for how to manage with a larger threat. Fourth, the characters will learn how to trace or track the animals to a kind of lair, where the characters will experience a boss fight type of encounter. Typically, this encounter will involve at least 2 animal swarms and at least 1 unusually large animal creature. The numbers will depend on the challenge level. After this experience, the characters could learn clues about how the animals became aggravated or mutated, possibly related to another threat or story arc that the characters could explore. Perhaps the animals were displaced by another stronger monster or group. Perhaps the swarms of rats and giant rats were working with a were-rat criminal mastermind or a crew of were-rat pirates. Other lycanthrope bosses could include were-ravens or were-bats. Spiders are another classic animal type that can link with diverse themes and adventures. Sometimes I modify the statistics of an animal swarm. I might share this approach in a different video after we all can access the new Monster Manual in February of 2025. What are your thoughts and suggestions about animal swarms? Please share in the comment section. As always, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.